Hey everyone, it's Christine with Momspiration 412, founder of EduPlay. And here we are for Momspiration Monday. And today is more of a sadder topic that we're going to be talking about today. A little more of a serious conversation, but also, part of our bigger mission, which is to support each other and to encourage each other. So as we grieve a loved one, many of us completed the poll today, and there were many responses on that poll where we have had that loss in our life. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight is ways that we have experienced loss and ways that we grieve that loss. So if you are on here, pop on here, give me a heart for those that you've lost in your life, and also share ways that you have grieved or have strategies or groups maybe that have helped you grieve. Because I know there are a lot of groups out there. We're going to get more into that next week, or the different types of groups and the different things. Today we're just going to talk about the loss of a loved one. So the big tragedy that happened this week, yesterday, Kobe Bryant, the helicopter crash, we know that him and his daughter were in there. There are reports of, other families in there, a coach, a mother, another child was in there. There are many different, many different family members, many different families that were affected by that crash. And, many people on social media have been posting, we didn't even know who they were, and it just hits us hard. And I totally relate to that. I know very, very little about basketball, but to hear that someone did pass away, to hear that a father and a daughter was in that, one of the articles or one of the posts that I read, it was like, as a parent, you're doing everything you can to protect your child, and those last moments, he's doing everything he can to protect his child. We don't know what happened, but that was something that someone wrote, that you can only imagine that you're doing everything you can to protect your children. So my heart goes out to all of those grieving and all of you grieving that are in your own situations now, in your own grieving processes now. So I'm friends with many of you, in our group, but also outside of our group. And I see things that happen. I see when we lose a pet. I see when we lose a loved one, when we lose a friend, when we lose, when we have a miscarriage or a child, So I see you and I feel for you. All of you are often in my thoughts, in my prayers, and I think of you and I send you my love and my hugs often. So I may not post things on Facebook about it often because I feel like for those types of situations, I would rather reach out to you and I'd rather give you a hug or tell you in person or, but I do see those things. I know that those things are happening. So if you are going through something right now, please know that we are sending love to you and, all the support that you could possibly need during this difficult time. With that being said, that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about my situation and my process. So, I'll just tell you, my situation by no means is as great as some of the situations that I know. Some of the moms that I see, some of my family members, some of the young children that have passed at a young age, the situation that happened, we all have our own experiences. They're big to us, and we grieve with them in our own time and in our own way. Catherine said the book, The Invisible String, was helpful when my daughter's great uncle passed away. Oh, that's a good one. We'll have to add that. Thank you. Thank you so much. So if you guys have anything else, any videos, any books like that, any articles, groups maybe, please share that on here. Let's get a nice feed going, and then that way we have a support for us to go to, because many times, when we are in this grieving process, we don't know what to do. We don't know who to turn to. We may be embarrassed. We may be shocked, So, and that is something that I'm going to say is that this topic, it could bring up a lot of emotions. And I did post that earlier, sadness, anger, pain, all of these things, shock when you're in it. So my situation, when we first got married, Dan had to go on a trip to Korea. He left the Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving, so he was here for Thanksgiving, but he wasn't coming back until January 10th. So he was gone for quite a while, for at least 6 weeks. In that time, I found out I was pregnant. So I'm so excited. He's in Korea. I can't even call him, all of these things. I had to email him a picture of the test to say, I'm so excited that we're pregnant. This is exciting, not really what we had planned. I mean, we only got married in July, so we didn't even have a full year of being married or anything, but that was fine. We were so excited still. And I went to, the doctor. I did the whole checkup and I told my mom. So, because we worked together at the time, she was the only one I told. So I'm doing all the things. I'm doing the prenatal vitamins. I'm doing the books. I'm doing the, cleaning up my eating, drinking water, watching my diet and all of that stuff, trying to do it all right. And when my husband came home, I threw out this huge party because I was so excited to, first of all, have him home because he missed Christmas and New Year's, and to tell all of our friends that we were expecting. So here I am. I have this big party. I make little presents for each of my friends. This was before kids when we actually had time to do things like this, right? And they were something little. It was like a little board book, and it was like a little spoon, and I tied a little saying to it, and I tied a big ribbon around my stomach, all the things. Over the top. Can't believe I did it all. Way too early to do that. But I was excited, and I knew that these people, if anything were to happen, they would be the ones that I knew, or I would tell, and they would support me. So we had this big party. Well, that morning, something didn't feel right. I felt a little uneasy, about some things. But I was like, you know what? I still feel like we're going to do this. We're going to tell them. So we did. We tell everyone. Everyone's so excited, all the things. Well, the next morning, I end up having to call the doctor. I call the doctor. They get me in for a pretty quick appointment and a sonogram. When they do the sonogram, they're like, well, yeah, you're pregnant, but it looks like you're about 6 weeks pregnant, which I knew wasn't the case because I knew Dan had been gone for at least 6 weeks. So I knew I was definitely further than 6 weeks. I was like, I don't feel like that's correct, and they're like, well, you know what, we'll do another ultrasound in a couple weeks. We'll see how things are progressing in a couple weeks, I remember telling my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't think this is good. It doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong, and she's like, well, let's just wait and see, So we did. We waited those 2 weeks. Well, in those 2 weeks, Dan and I booked a trip prior to all of this to go to Vegas because he was going to be gone for Christmas and New Year's. We wanted to get away. So yes, I went to Vegas, no alcohol. We still had a blast, but here I am thinking I'm pregnant. We get back and we do our appointment, and they were very quiet when they were doing the appointment. And I just was like, something's wrong. Something's not right. So they left and they said, well, why don't you come and, talk to the doctor, see the results, and I was like, no, it's not good. I just know. So it turns out that I did have a miscarriage. They said the baby stopped developing after 6 weeks. And I just remember I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. It was our first time experiencing any loss like that. And, I don't remember much after that, but I know I remember they scheduled to have a D&C, which, was to clear out everything in there. And it was on Valentine's Day. So literally the worst Valentine's Day ever. But I went in for this procedure. I had it done. And I just remember waking up and just crying as soon as I woke up, thinking to myself, I had a baby and now I don't, which I knew wasn't the case because the baby stopped developing, So that was my first experience, dealing with something that was traumatic to me. And like I said, compared to some of the moms in this group, some of the situations we know, it is not as, I don't know, deep, but it was hard for me, And I know that there's a lot of moms that have gone through a lot of things that were probably harder. And I'm here for you. And I'm, obviously thinking of you all. So that was one thing for me. And I remember just crying. I remember just not wanting to get out of bed. And that day, you don't think of things that are going to trigger you, but I remember that day laying in bed and there was a ton of baby ads and baby commercials and all of the baby things on TV that day, which just made me more upset all day long, So I remember Dan saying, hey, let me put on this movie. It was a great movie I just saw while I was away. Like, you really would like it. Romantic comedy, like, you know me, I love that, right? So had this movie on and it was great. I loved it all the way up until this couple had a baby. They got pregnant and had a baby. That was it. The movie was over for me that day, But, you don't realize those things that are going to trigger you. You don't realize how you're going to feel. You don't realize, I realized that I could fall into depression very easily if I let it happen. You lost a child. I already loved that baby, even if it was only 6 weeks old, But as there's my little baby right now. Can you say hi? Hi. Daddy's putting them to bed tonight. Goodbye. Goodbye. Hey guys, thanks for hopping on. So that was one thing that I didn't realize. One thing that, when I would take long drives to work, here, either sit with me. There you go. Take long drives to work and I would just get upset and I would just cry, and not knowing why. So that was one thing,
Daddy got a new job done.
So I was very fortunate during this time that I did have my coworkers at the time. I had my family. I had people sending me, supportive and sympathetic cards and text messages and phone calls. People would bring us dinner, these things that would help. So having a support system is a great way. Go ahead. Go upstairs, please. To be able to get through these. Go upstairs, please. To get through these difficult times, a support system. And if you don't have one, reaching out to groups that may be able to help you. So I know there are a lot of groups in this area, especially through West Penn Hospital, that offer a huge group through miscarriages, and not miscarriages. I mean, through miscarriages as well, but postpartum depression is what I was trying to say. I'm sorry. So that is another huge thing, postpartum depression. And that led to, I think of Steve and his daughter, where his wife, had postpartum depression. So another part of it is not knowing people. We don't know what people are going through. And we talked about this last week a little bit. Brittany commented on here and said that she just lost a very close friend to her, that she was dealing with some things and no one knew about it, and it ended up in a terrible way, So there are many, many ways and many situations that we can be in. And the biggest thing is to understand that we don't all grieve in the same way and we don't all grieve in the same time. Darlene messaged or commented on that in the post, and she said, the hardest part is people thinking that it's supposed to be a set number, a set amount of time, or, this is the length that you're supposed to grieve, and that's not the case. Some people may not cry where some people do cry, so it's finding the group that's going to help support you, the people that are going to support you. And if you don't have a support group, it's going out and finding one, please reach out and I will help find you a system, because there are so many people in this group that I know that we could see from that poll that have either lost a parent, lost a sibling, lost a grandparent, a child, a stillborn, a pet. All of these things are huge. They're losses in our life, and a piece of us is hurt, and we're hurting whenever those things happen. So if you are looking to connect with someone that did experience something similar, please, please reach out, and I will make sure that I can connect you with someone, because I know there are a lot of women in this group that are going through a lot of similar things. So please keep that in mind, and please reach out. Deanna said, we've always been open and honest with Anthony, 6 years old, about death. His first true experience was the traumatic for him when he lost our dear Ziggy, your cat. I remember this past August. He cried a lot, and we told him it's okay to release those energies. Absolutely. Absolutely. And my thing is, we are very honest too with our children. We lost my husband's father, not this past September, but the previous September. And that was a very difficult time for us, where here I am, I still have my grandparents and my grandmother on my family, my side of the family, and on his side of the family, we're losing a parent, So, and just seeing the family deal with the grief in all different ways, but telling my children, the biggest thing we would tell them is, they're going up to sleep with the angels. We were very open about it all, and saying, they were sick, or this happened, or, and you're making it appropriate for kids, but you're also making sure that you're telling them what actually is going on. And it's okay. It's okay for them to cry, especially a cat, a pet that they love, because they are with them, and it's okay. A grandparent, a child. I mean, I know many of you, there's situations. We may have been pregnant, and we told our children, and now we have to explain to them that now that this baby's up in heaven with the angels, So all of those different ways are great grieving ways. So thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Catherine. Please, anyone else, please go ahead and feel free to share. I just want to talk a little bit about grief, a little bit about a few things that I found. And then we're going to continue this next week. I'm going to have a special guest next week with us, and she's going to share her experience and how she has dealt with it and what she has done to help others dealing with things in similar situations, or to help prevent things. So we are going to continue this conversation next week, but I'm going to go over just a few things that I found, that there's no right or wrong way to grieve, that there are healthy ways to deal with the grieving process. So, keeping it in it's hard to keep it in. You want to be able to tell people, and the pain will go away if you ignore it. This is one of the myths that's out there. And it says, trying to ignore your pain or keep it from surfacing will only make it worse in the long run. For real healing, it is necessary to face your grief and actively deal with it. So these are some things that I found from an article. We could post these in our recap, and we'll share some of these other tips that we found. The importance to be strong in the face of loss. So like I said, these are all the myths that you're hearing. Feeling sad, frightened, or lonely is a normal reaction to loss. Crying doesn't mean you're weak. You don't need to protect your family or friends by putting on a brave front. Showing your true feelings can help them and you. So I think that's very, very true. Not feeling like you have to be strong and you have to, put on this front that I'm okay and everything's fine, because there's going to be something in some way that it's going to come out, and it may not be a healthy way. So think about that. If you don't cry, it means you aren't sorry for the loss, which is definitely not the case. Crying is a normal response to sadness, but it's okay not to cry. Those who don't cry may feel the pain just as deeply as others. They may simply have other ways of showing it. Grieving should last about a year. Obviously, we know that there's no time for our grieving process. It takes, a different amount of time for each person to grieve, and it all depends on the situation, whatever it may have been. Moving on with your life means that you forgot about the grief, and I know that was something for me. It was hard for me to kind of move on and kind of forget, because I didn't want to forget what happened. It says it means that you've accepted your loss, but that's not the same as forgetting. You can move on with your life and keep the memory of someone or something you lost as an important part of you. In fact, as we move through life, these memories can become more and more defining to the people we are. So I think that's huge. I've seen, and we may have seen this, you may have had experiences, where things remind you of those that you've lost. Cardinals often are signs of a lost one, and if you see a cardinal, you might think of a lost one, a loved one that you lost. There were situations in our family that, like, whenever things happen, it made me think of, the baby that we could have had. So just different things that may make you think of those things, and maybe it makes you think of it and it makes you warm, it makes your heart warm, and makes you think of them, in a positive way. But there are also things that could trigger you, and it could make you think of things, and get upset and, things like that. So trying to kind of help with those types of things. When grieving a loss is an inevitable part of life, while grieving, there are ways to cope with the pain that come to terms with the grief and eventually find a way to pick up the pieces and move on with your life. So these are the dealing with the grieving process. This is something that I read from an article. Acknowledge your pain. Accept the grief that can trigger many different and unexpected emotions. Understand that the grieving process will be unique to you. Seek out face-to-face support from people who care about you. Support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. Recognize the difference between grief and depression. And that may have been something that I didn't know at the time. Maybe I was just grieving, but I felt like if I let this happen, I could fall into depression, So just knowing those different things for yourself could help with the process. So reaching out to a group, a loved one. Sometimes you may experience people that don't know how to approach you. If you've lost a loved one, they don't know what to say to you. I say a lot of times, I'm thinking of you. You're, what do I say? I'm sending you love and hugs, or love and prayers, or, because sometimes it is difficult to say, I'm sorry for your loss, or you want it to be a little more meaningful for that to them, like, we know that we're sorry, but how can we show you that we're sorry? How can we help you through this, So, like I said, sometimes it may be difficult for someone to reach out to you, but sometimes, they may be able to just sit with you. They may be able just to cry with you. There may not be any words that need to be spoken. It just may be someone there with you, and I know that was true for me, and I know that can be true for a lot of you. It doesn't have to be words. It doesn't have to be actions. It doesn't have to be anything. Just someone there with you, just knowing that you're not alone and that you're going through this, this process. So I think that's all my notes for this evening. I just want to make sure that there was nothing else that I wanted to share. But obviously we know that, the loss of a loved one and grieving, it could come in many forms. We talked about the loss of animals. We talked about the loss of siblings, parents, grandparents, classmates. We are, getting to that point, or some of us already have had that point. I know my sister at a very young age lost at least 2 of her classmates. In elementary school, and, that is something. Think about the high school, situations. Those children have to grieve as well whenever they go through a situation that we've seen, or, so people do grieve in different ways. They grieve different situations, different ways, and different times. So keep that in mind. Think about ways that we could help each other. Please share any ways that have helped you get through a situation, whether it was a book that you read, whether it was a specific support group that you found, whether it was just reaching out to someone and talking to them, whether it was being honest and saying it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to let those emotions out. So all of these things are a huge part of the grieving and the process. So many thoughts, many prayers, all my love and hugs to all of you. If you are going through a situation now or you have in the past, know that we are all here. Please reach out if you need to. And if you would like to be connected with someone that has gone through something similar, please let me know. If you would like to be connected with a group or a bigger part of something in this area, please let me know, and I will help you guys through this. The biggest part of our mission is to support each other, and unfortunately, this is a very difficult topic to talk about. It is very real, though, and it is very much something that we do need to talk about. So a lot of thoughts go out to Kobe Bryant and all of the families that were affected by the tragic crash yesterday. And please know that we are here, just here to support you, just here to offer you love. So stay tuned. Like I said, next week we are going to have a special guest that's going to talk with us more about her case and about how she dealt with it and the ways that she is helping other people in our community and other moms from going through a similar situation that she went through. So please make sure you join us next Monday at 8:30 because it's going to be a good one. And if you have any situations that you would want to talk about, I would love to have a guest on here if they would like to share about their journey with postpartum depression. That is something that we as mothers, we feel that we can't let it out, but I know that there is a great group here in the area now, and I know many moms are getting the help that we need, and please, reach out to those that could help you because we want to be able to support you. So know that we love you, know that we are here for you, and please reach out if you need to. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week and had a great Monday. And remember, guys, see each moment as a chance to learn. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.